GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey guys, I'm Felissa Rose Angela from Sleepaway Camp, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas podcast.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas bringing you another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast, and today we have a legend in the horror business joining us. We have Michael Berryman. A lot of you may know him from, well, he's been in a ton of movies, I gotta say, but I'd say the most famous, at least to me, would be The Hills Have Eyes 1 and 2, but we're gonna get into some other things that he's done as well, because he has been in so many movies, it's insane. So I'm honored that he is coming on the show. Very grateful for that. But before we get to it, I need to let you guys know that today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with an advertiser that fits your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. So guys, I don't want to waste any more time. Michael doesn't have a lot of time, so let's get him on the phone and get this horror interview rolling. Well, the first thing I want to do is just say thank you. I truly appreciate you doing this, and very happy that you agreed to.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let's see if you have good questions. Just joking.
I want to go back as far as we can go, and I want to know how old you were when you actually discovered that you had an interest in acting.
I never had an interest in acting.
Oh, really? So,
no, really. Farthest thing from my mind.
So it just kind of fell into your lap?
Basically, yes. I was in Venice Beach, California. My hometown of Santa Monica is right nearby, and I had a little shop and a couple blocks from the ocean, and I ran into a friend who had an antique store, and her father was George Powell.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when you actually started doing film, were you a fan of just the industry, movies in general, horror movies, anything at all, or was it just kind of like a whole new world for you?
Oh, well, I grew up watching Twilight Zone, all the classics. I'd stay up late and watch the Universal monster movies, and I was a fan. I had intentions of moving way up north, maybe Homestead in Alaska, something like that. I'd left college and wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I wanted to, be somewhere in nature. And when I ran into George Powell, I was introduced to him. We were having some wine and crackers with the people across the street. They had a high-end antique store, I said. And her father was George, and he said hello, and then he asked me if I was an actor, and I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, you have an interesting face. I'd like to put you in a movie I'm doing. And he handed me a business card, and then I realized that he had done War of the Worlds, etc. I said, well, that's pretty cool. And he said, well, just, please be in my movie. It's a Doc Savage movie, and, work it one day and get you in the union. We have to, give you a 2-day guarantee, and if anything ever becomes of this, tell people that George Powell discovered you. So I said, sure, no problem. So I did, and I got the call, went to a meeting, and at Warner Brothers, and met George and his producer and Wardrobe people who got fitted for my outfit. And then a couple of weeks later, I was on the set at the Harold Lloyd estate, and we shot out the scenes. And when it was wrapped, thanked George and went home and figured that was a pretty quick career. So being a kid growing up with a visual difference and dealing with medical issues, I didn't want more attention brought to me, so I figured, what the hell, why would I want to be, in movies? After I worked and wrapped on George, I was, doing other odd jobs, and got Cuckoo's Nest because George's George had a casting director who happened to be working for that project, and I never met them. But George said, well, this guy could be a mental patient, so maybe you might want to meet with him. And so I did, and then we did 4 months of working on Cuckoo's Nest.
Wow. And then fast forward for somebody who didn't want to, or never had an interest in doing movies, you've done a lot of movies since then that I can't even keep track of how many movies you've been in.
Well, it's been 40 years, thanks to George, and he could make a living out with it, and as got years and lean years, but I learned a lot. It's an artistic medium, and you have to be disciplined, which is good, and met some wonderful people, worked with some great people, and over time, practice makes you better. So over time, I kind of figured out that I knew what I was doing.
Now, would you say that when you did The Hills Have Eyes, was that like an instant big movie? Did you know that it was like something special when you were doing it, or is that something that just gained so much steam over time?
Well, the latter. The original title was Blood Relations.
Mm-hmm.
Wes was just getting started. Peter Locke is still with us. He's doing fine. We didn't think it was going to do, much of anything. Maybe it hit a drive in. Well, it actually did. Went around the country, got a lot of notoriety, and we got to be on the one sheet, which is very cool. And things picked up from there. Yeah, it's a classic.
So would you say that you prefer to do horror movies, or do you not have like a specific genre that you gravitate towards?
I like all genres. I've done music videos, comedy for TV, science fiction, Star Trek, fantasy, adventure, all of that. I like a good story and good direction, good art department, and good DP is always appreciated. Over time, I learned a lot about camera and blocking and the lens, and what does it require to capture the what the director's looking for. So I made a habit of in the beginning, especially even on my days off, I would hang close to the set and see if I could learn a little more about how this process works. So I don't have a preference. I do ask. There are areas that roles I would not accept. Just a lecherous rapist or something just hideous. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I won't do a scene where you hurt a kid or animals. You have to have your. It's like Clint Eastwood. Every man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah.
I kind of stick to that rule.
You mentioned that even on your days off, you kind of hang around and watch and see how everything's done. Is that because you are interested in directing, producing, and things like that, or is it just honing your craft?
Well, it's honing the craft. I never really, we directed a few scenes here and there in various projects, didn't get credit for it, but the main thing was, I've worked with independent filmmakers where we're kind of moving forward on the next setup, and if you're not experienced enough or you have your shot list down thoroughly figured out with your DP, then the day can be excruciatingly long, especially for talent. You want them fresh, you want them to get a good performance, and on occasion I would, when it was necessary, I would offer a suggestion. And oftentimes they're oh, that's a good way to do that. Or if you're working with another actor that's got less experience, and I had one guy during the Hills Have Eyes 2 where I kicked the guy in the head, and he didn't know how to do that fake kick and block it for camera, and he had no idea where his frame was. So he literally said, he didn't know how to react to it. So he just said, I have a thick skull, just go ahead and actually kick me and I'll just move out. And I said, no, there's a way we do that. So had the stunt guy come over and got him to look through the camera, so he got an idea of his placement and where the invisible frame line is, that surrounds us on how tight a shot it is. Things like that. But it just never came to be that I had to studio backing or funding or time to, have a parallel career.
Okay. So staying on the topic of, you were talking about stunt guys just a second ago. Now, when it comes down to doing any type of stunts, do you just do your own?
Oh, no. There are people that get paid to do that, and that's what they do. And they make us look good. And you can't. It's just not a good idea to take a chance at an injury. That costs the company a lot of money, and it's not something you want to have to be responsible for. So no, I don't do my own stunts.
Okay. So I've mentioned earlier in the show that you've done a ton of movies, so this is going to be kind of a tough question, but what were some of your favorite movies that you've done, and why were those the ones that came to your mind first?
Well, the first one's a TV show, guest star on The X-Files. That was a really cool role. You think he's a scary guy, and he's actually a guardian angel to protect the young boy with stigmata, because the devil's after him. Mm-hmm. In my book, I mentioned, it's too personal, I don't really mention, but I'll just say this. There was a situation that took place in my life that the end result was good with safety, but there was a price in the process. So to play that role was a cathartic way for me to kind of tidy up that experience. So I told Chris Carter that I said, I never gave the details, because they didn't need to know. I just said, I want to knock it out of the park for you on the audition. That was the last time I ever had an audition.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As far as movies, Weird Science, just simply for the joy of it and being around such wonderful people, with Bill Paxton, Kelly, and Robert, and who's a director now, Wyatt. Michael Anthony Hall. Got to work on a Motley Crue video. It's not a movie, but it's a video. They were just delightful. They were a lot of fun to work with. Actually had a good work ethic. Very, very professional. A lot of fun. I've done some silent short films with a filmmaker named Jesse Burke. He's an orthopedic surgeon out of Arkansas. And we did one called One Please, which is a 14-minute short where I'm like the creepy ice cream man that comes to suburbia and sells ice cream at this price. It's been online for a long time. You can probably find it. Mm-hmm. I've done a couple with Jesse. I like a lot of the independent projects. They're very thought-provoking and fresh. It's nice to work with new people. Cuckoo's Nest, of course, is my most endearing. Let's see. Evil Spirits was fun. Trying to go through my IMDb list. I got to work with Deodato. I got to go to the Amazon, work on Cut and Run with Richard Lynch, and got to work with Sharon Stone before people knew who she was. I was on Wes Craven's Deadly Blessings.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a crap movie, but managed to get through it. There's a little bit of, there's a gem in everything you do. There's a really good scene in with Eddie Furlong and myself. He's a writer, has writer's block. He goes out to the mountains and gets himself locked into a freezer, just having a secure place where he can't come out until he finishes his screenplay. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's called Below Zero.
Okay, yep.
That was a fun one too, because even in a movie that's not going to win a Oscar, there's always a scene that there's always some meat on the bone, and if the movie's crap, at least I'll make my scenes as good as they can be. So that's kind of fun.
Excellent. I was going to actually ask you about Weird Science too, because that's one of my favorite movies. That had to be a lot of fun making that.
It was. Been friends with Berman and his wife for 3 decades afterwards. We shot it on the lot, and great special effects. Actually, Green Books, and the gal was catapulted out of the behind the chimney, and it was green screen. But she did literally 20, 30 feet up, land in the pool. That was amazing.
Oh wow!
And and the missile being pushed through the floor of the roof, that actually happened. I was right there by the camera when they did that. That was amazing. See the process on it. Pre-cut it and glued and painted, and then put a hydraulic rim and shove it right through the house built inside a soundstage.
Yeah. That had to be excellent. Now, you also mentioned a Motley Crue music video, so when you did that, are you a fan of that genre of music? So was that like a cool moment where you got to hang out with a band that you actually like and listen to, or was that just another one of those things that kind of like fell into your lap?
Well, I graduated high school in 1966. I saw a lot of the great bands, the Doors, the Jefferson Airplane, the Who, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Love and Spoonful, a lot of the classics, Moody Blues. I wish I'd had a chance to see Janis, but I was into other music at the time when Motley Crue was popular. I really didn't know who they were. My agent said, "Hey, I got a gig for you for a band called Motley Crue." And I go, "Sure, that's how I pronounce it?" I'm not sure I did, but just show us the address, show up, have fun. And they were deluxe. They were just a lot of fun. I left college in '72, so I had a friend who was a disc jockey at Dylan's, which was a real popular, one of the premier discotheques near UCLA in Westwood Village. And he hated disco. He was a musician, but he paid the bills. He spun vinyl. So they were just really down to earth, a lot of fun. Tommy and Nick were big fans of the Hills Have Eyes, and they were as tickled as I was having a good time with them. They said, "Hey, hang backstage with us behind the curtain at the auditorium where we were filming," and they had beer and party favors, and they were just a lot of fun. When it was no attitude, when it was time for them for the next shot, they just got up and went to work. So they were professional and very nice people. I actually went to the opening of Vince Neil had a little restaurant that he opened, a little tiny biker restaurant, motif in Circus, I think it was. He called me up and invited me out to hang out when they kind of opened that to the public. And Nick was having his surgery. I think he had surgery. He had an issue with his hand. Mm-hmm. And he had some medical things going on, so I'd give him a call once in a while and see if, cheer him on. And they're just regular guys, just, living their life.
That's awesome. Very cool to hear that, too. One movie I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if this is true, but is it true that you actually shot scenes for The Crow, but they just didn't make it into the actual movie?
Yes, I was the original projector, the Skull Cowboy, in the original James LeBar story in the book. The Skull Cowboy was an avenging spirit because he and his beloved had been murdered. Mm-hmm. And the Crow was a spirit guide, so I could come back and administer justice to those that had killed us. But in the process, I got involved trying to help some innocent people that were not part of the list. And if you do that, you will not be reunited with your beloved. I had some wonderful, wonderful scenes to do with Brandon before he got shot. They were going to, I'd worked for about 5 weeks, and then I went home, and then they were going to get all the action shots done on the shooting. Yeah, and then they were going to bring me back for 2 weeks with just Brandon and me for the 3 confrontations where we had a lot of dialogue. He was wonderful, very kindred spirit, really just a remarkable fellow, and we hit it off really well. We were looking forward to working together in the future, but things didn't go that way.
Yeah, and that's one of the most, that I could think of, one of the most famous and sad stories in movies that I've ever come across. So I thought that was really cool when I read that you were actually involved in that at one point. I had no idea until...
We shot a lot in the original. We worked a lot together. There was a scene where he crawls out of the grave, and you see my booth. I bring the crow.
Oh, okay.
I have the crow. I bring the crow, and then when I leave, I did the scene. There's a book by Kitchen Sink Press Publishing, and it's called The Making of the Crow. Mm-hmm. And in it, one of the last chapters is called On the Cutting Room Floor, and it's 4 pages with sketches, drawings, and photographs of me, and an explanation of what the character meant and how we were going to use the character to tell the original story. Mm-hmm. And then we had conversations with my director and producer about if we could use a body double, but it would require the emotion to read on the face of the actor when I tell him, the rules of engagement, that, he's trying to save Sarah and protect other innocent people. And I explained to him how when you are shot, the blood will not flow back in. And there's a slight reference to that without the explanation in the final version of the film, when he realizes that his wounds are not healing, when he's with a Top Dog, or whatever the guy's name is, the sword over here. A beautiful film. I can only watch the first one. The remakes I'm glad somebody was working, but I have no interest in the remakes. There's some wonderful, wonderful scenes when he talks to Sarah's mother, the heroin addict, and he says that lovely line about mothers that ain't forgotten, hearts and lips of all children. And how they shot that. They ran the camera backwards, of course, they did it in real time with the heroin coming out of her.
Oh, wow.
Every chance I had on the set to be close to watch his performance, I was there. Even, you can hang in. It was cold. It was very, very cold in North Carolina. But you can hide out in your motorhome if you want. But I chose to just capture, witness the amazing energy that Brandon had. He's pretty cool guy. When we first met on the set, he invited me into his motorhome. We hung out and talked for about an hour or more. And we were really looking forward to doing those other scenes, but things wouldn't have done it in a different way.
Wow. Well, it's cool to hear that he was such an awesome, down-to-earth guy. I've read a lot about what happened and watched all, documentaries on stuff like that, and that's just such a wild story.
Well, I'll just be flat out honest. I think that because they changed the rules in North Carolina, they don't like unions, and after a production of so many weeks, then if you want to save money, you can hire a local hire, and they don't have to be in the Sundance Union or whatever. And so they hired a local guy to do all the weapons, and he was not as proficient as the previous people. There were all kinds of stupid rumors that he had, I was on the set of Mojave Moon with Danny Aiello, and Michael Massey was sitting right behind me. I didn't see him, and somebody was asking me some questions, and I saw Michael, and I said, "Hey, we need to go talk." Because there were 3 Michaels on the cast, and we all got harassing phone calls from people wanting the story. What happened? Did you put a bullet in the gun? Blah, 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 blah.
And
I just politely hang up.
Yeah.
Not even going to go there. But my understanding is that there was a close-up single shot of looking at the revolver where you see the bullets, and they ejected them, and the bullets were not fully shoved into the brass. They were just cut off and glued to a shell to make it look, like they were loaded.
Yeah.
And when they ejected them, one of those tips unglued itself, and it was in the cylinder. So when the armorer from North Carolina, I believe he was from North Carolina, our replacement guy, put in the blanks, there's nothing protruding past the end of the brass. So it didn't move or budge or not seat in the chamber that had the bullet tip in it. So I grew up around firearms. I was reloading at the age of 12, target practicing with my family, etc. And when at night you're handling a gun, you take a flashlight and you check all the cavities. You check the barrel, and you check the chamber, and you check the cylinder, and you didn't do that. That would have saved a life, So I've been called being a type that I'm very linear, just a polite way of saying the other, not saying the other word, but I'm okay with that. When it comes to safety, I don't mess around.
Right.
So that's how Brandon got shot.
Wow, that is horrible. It sounds like it was just straight negligence. But to move on to what you have going on, is there any project you have coming up next? Is there anything going on currently? I know the pandemic slowed everything down, but is there anything you could tell us about?
Well, I'll be at Blood and Ink in Nashville, in Louisville, Kentucky next week. It's a Ben Dixon show. It's a tattooing and film horror convention. What's really going on is pretty much staying close to home, waiting to get my second COVID shot before I travel, and finishing my autobiography. And I'll be sending it off to my manager and publisher in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But it's a story of me as a kid, how I was born, why the haircut, et cetera, et cetera. And it answers a lot of questions. And it's the journey of this young boy all the way up until a couple of, at the end, looks like a path forward. And, I referenced a couple of the early films, but it's mostly about the life of this kid. It's called It's All Good. So and then I have my website, michaelberryman.com. You can get an autograph picture, a couple clothing items, and I'll be posting information on my Facebook page and the website when the book is available. When I couldn't tell you that. I've been writing it for about a year now, and it's a good read, so I'm pretty happy with it. Aside from that, staying healthy is pretty much all I got going. Oh, I rake leaves once in a while. We got a couple acres, cows across the street. I like the country life. I like quiet.
Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate you being here today, and I know you didn't have a lot of time, so thank you for spending a little bit with us. And do you have any other social media, like Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
No, I have a flip phone. My wife has a smartphone. I have a computer, and there are so many platforms out there that I could spend 24/7 and never get anything accomplished other than, So, no, I like to go out and do things. I love technology. I think it's cool and groovy, but I'm kind of old school in the way that, I like to be able to sit down, have a cup of coffee or a beer or something and have a conversation. I don't do Instagram and all that FaceTime, and, for a number of reasons. Mostly because time is valuable and precious, and if I want to interact with somebody, I like it to be in real face-to-face. There's something called emotional content, and it's a nice little thing I pulled from the Bruce Lee movie when he's talking about Han's tournament. I think it was Inn of the Dragon or Return of the Dragon. He mentioned, and so that's kind of where I leave it. And I'm just hoping that things get back safely to normal, and I just wish more people would respect science and medicine and understand that when you have an attitude of like what they did in Miami Beach last week, come down and just create a super spreader event, it shows no respect for human life. It shows no respect for hospital workers and EMTs and their police, and it's beyond disrespectful. I think every single one of them should all have been arrested and have their day in court. And they tell you to disperse and don't do that. Oh yeah, we can start with our governor because he's just as lazy, and I'm sorry, he's not happy. Prisons, pick a zip code. There's always going to be somebody who thinks they're in control, and they make really stupid decisions. If it causes harm, it's not stupid. It's you should be liable for creating harm. And you should have enough self-respect, enough respect for other people to not cause harm in the first place. But good luck with that.
Yeah, well, I do agree with you there. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You are a legend in the movie industry and horror movies, and it meant a lot to me for you to be here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I was in awe when I met Rod Serling one night at a 31 Flavors ice cream parlor after he had just wrapped doing a taping of Night Gallery. He was very interesting. But I appreciate the comment, and you're welcome. But that's what happens when you do the same thing for long enough and you're old. Yeah, a living legend, not a dead one yet. Still got a lot of, still kicking and screaming.
That's right. So get that second vaccine and let's get rolling.
I will. Take care, brother. Be safe.
listeners. So again, that was Michael Berryman, and I urge you to just go watch anything that you can get your hands on that he's been in. There's tons of movies to choose from. If you're not a horror fan per se, he does everything. Comedies like Weird Science, which is one of my favorites, and that story about Brandon Lee and being on the set of The Crow was awesome. For me personally, that's one of my favorite movies also. Hopefully you guys will go ahead and go back and check out his catalog. And a lot of my listeners are horror fans to begin with, so I know you guys have seen these movies a bunch of times, but just go back and check him out after listening to this. So thank you for joining me once again on the All Bets Are Off podcast, and we will continue to bring you excellent interviews like this one. And I thank you guys for supporting us. Make sure you follow us on social media. ABAO Pod on everything across the board. Search for us, find us. I'm also selling t-shirts, not only for wrestling and music, but also for the podcast on ProWrestlingTees.com/RockstarRobbieVegas. So check it out, and I will see you next week.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.